Clearly within Ipsos, you've had a very entrepreneurial journey to go from launching that team to now running the entire region. Tell us a little bit about those steps that you've taken along the way and how you've gone over 14, 15 years to leading the business.
So I swore I would only be there 5 years. That's the mentality of somebody in their early 30s, isn't it? I will just do 5 years and then I'll move on. But when you find an organisation which you bring the right match of skills with their strategic need at a particular time, and they're really good at creating new opportunities and stretching you and pushing you on to do something else, why wouldn't you stay for nearly 15 years? And that's why Ben ended up staying for the best part of 40 years as well.
Incredible.
And as the business develops and evolves, you develop and evolve. There's never a shortage of opportunity as long as you keep pushing things forward as well. So I came into public affairs and I was the first Ipsos, or Mori as it was, is a business that has some very long tenured staff, 30, 40 years. I'm sending out beautiful emails on a regular basis saying, thank you so much for your 35 years of service. Wow. Here's the benefits that you get now that you've been with us for this period of time. The talent and the depth of knowledge and the historical knowledge, the heritage in the business is incredible. But when I joined, I was the first newbie to be on the management team in the public sector division. It had all been long-standing employees of the business of Mori at the time. And so that was quite intimidating.
I bet.
And the only non-researcher as well from a discipline, though I used research a lot, but I wasn't, hadn't been brought up in the Mori guys in the history as well. And so after a period of time and building out the evaluation function, I became the Deputy Managing Director of the Public Affairs business. So that today is about 350, 400 people today. I think back then we were maybe about 200 from memory. So it's been a great growth business for us over the years. And because we had managed to diversify the business, and I had a different type of skill set that helps you manage and run businesses and to think about how you diversify for the future and keep businesses profitable and growing, I took on the deputy role to Bobby at the time.
Indeed.
And when Bobby decided to leave, and I have to be honest, timing in your career, there's hard work, there's luck, and there's timing. And when Bobby decided to move on and he got that fabulous role at King's, which fit with his career desires and aspirations, I was asked to take on
Ready and in the wings,
role. Yeah, well, so it was a great opportunity for me because it's a great grounding in a business that is full of a very strong senior leadership team, top of its game, best in class in its industry, like undeniably best in class. And you get to lead this phenomenal team of people. Incredible. So it was amazing. And I did that for a few years, actually during the pandemic, before the pandemic for a few years, and then through the pandemic as well. And we did amazing work. Some of the most stimulating and value-adding pieces we delivered during that time, from the work for the Duchess of Cambridge, helping her get a proper perception study running on how people perceive the early years, because people don't realise that the early years of children's life is actually with most opportunity for development. And so we did a fabulous piece with her. And then after that, it was Duchess of Cambridge, now Princess of Wales. Sorry, get it right, upgrade the title. And then the other piece, which was for the COVID surveillance work that we did as well as a company. And that was a huge company effort where we turned our call centres from outbound to inbound, where we dealt with 150,000 swab tests on a given week. With every day stuff was going off to labs, we were reporting. It was huge volumes. Cold chain, we developed a cold chain. You know what a cold chain is? Because I didn't know what a cold chain was before this, but so that the swabs could be transited at a certain temperature from the house right through to the laboratory, so that they would be kept intact, and we could giving people whether they had a record of whether they had COVID or not COVID at a particular period of time, and advice on what to do.
That wasn't the technology I thought we'd be talking about in market research today, but there we go.
No, but this is it. If you understand, if we talk about the infrastructure in this country,
Yeah.
The market research sector is an incredible infrastructure in a country's moment of need. When you need to know what people are doing, what they're thinking, what they're feeling, and indeed perhaps even biological samples, how do you get that data?
Yeah.
We are a nationally important infrastructure, and in that moment, we turned that infrastructure around very quickly in a period of weeks. We were behind the ONS study,
Yeah.
the massive study that they were doing, and we ran our own with Imperial College, which was the REACT study. That public affairs team and the operations team at Ipsos did an amazing job during that time, alongside colleagues in the laboratories and other places. And then after public affairs, another timing moment when our founder, Didier Truchot, who founded Ipsos back in 1975, decided that it was time for him to step back from CEO. He'd been the only CEO Ipsos had ever had in its history.
Incredible.
And he stepped back and became chairman. And he needed a new CEO, and he appointed Ben Page, who was leading the UK and Ireland at the time.
Yeah.
And so there was a process. There was a process where people could demonstrate their interest for the role of CEO for the UK and Ireland, and put in an application, go through an interviewing process with Didier, the CFO at the time globally, and Ben obviously as well, and some other chair people who'd been around, because we'd have had chairmen around the UK business at that time too.
Yeah.
So there was a process. And I didn't apply originally. I wasn't sure. I spoke to my husband, as all good women do. I spoke to my husband and I said, listen, this is a huge thing. My job, public affairs, is a huge business. It's really challenging to run this business. It's all consuming. The amount of networking you have to, it's a big part of the gig, as well as you have to be on tap for media on a regular basis, and you're running a business that is a big business. And he said, no, go for it. And then Ben reached out and he said, are you thinking of actually applying for this? There's a process, we have applicants, and if you're interested, we'd welcome an application. And so myself and a number of others put applications forward, and there was a process that was run. I think I lost about 10 kg in that couple of weeks. It was absolutely horrific, just the strain and the stress of it all. And in the end, I was appointed. They had a staff panel. There was a staff. I was like, who's created this innovation?
There's some serious governance going on. It's great.
Yeah, no, it's a big gig. And in Ipsos, we have regional territory markets, and the UK and Ireland is a really important territory market where we are, in many of the things that we do, best in class, and maintaining that best in class, that's not easy, and pushing businesses on to do new things and to develop in market. You need to make sure that you've got an active plan for that as well. So, and that was in 2021. It's now 2025, and that feels like it was a lifetime ago.
I bet, yeah. But all going strong. I've got some interesting questions. So, one of the things I think is fascinating about market research is the exposure and influence that a lot of people in this industry get from their very early career. And now clearly you've had some of the greatest exposure. You spoke about some wonderful projects there, but talk to us on a sort of personal level. What have been some of the pinch yourself moments that you found yourself in situations where you go, I didn't really expect market research to bring me into this environment?
I did expect it.
You did? Yeah.
I did.
Because you're out there advising politicians and...
I did. And I think if I look across the industry, and I'm quite selective about the events I go to, because there's lots of invitations you could accept. You could be out every night of the week and more, and it's not good for you. Never mind being too present in places. It's not helpful either. So when I do go, I struggle with the view that this industry have itself sometimes about not being in those rooms, and I absolutely expect to be in the rooms that I am in. I had Julia Gillard, the first female Prime Minister of Australia. I would see her on an annual basis. We do a lovely thing together, but it's a really important landmark study of global perceptions around female equality. I absolutely expect the Princess of Wales to phone Ipsos and say, excuse me, can you field your most senior person to run this programme for me because it's really critical? I absolutely expect that.
And I think that's absolutely the attitude that we need in market research.
Well, we could do with a bit more of it.
Indeed.
What we have to offer it is critical for
Incredible,
organisations. We need to get better at bringing the information faster and in a format that people can engage with, and to come out of ourselves a little bit and put ourselves in their shoes for how they want to consume that information. But we have absolute gold, and so it's not a surprise.
And Kelly, the last, hopefully a little bit of a fun question before we move on to talking about talent. Talk to me about the feeling after you publish the exit poll. Is there any nerves, or have you got 100% confidence in the incredible work that you guys have done?
So it's not just us. There is a massive academic
For sure.
team, or a small academic team, but with massive influences sit behind that. Obviously, John Curtis and Will Jennings and co. You know, they are doing all of the formulaic work that sits behind that. Even as the CEO of Ipsos in the UK, I do not get to see any of these results. So during the election, the most recent election, I was sitting in Bloomberg.
Yeah.
So I was doing Bloomberg and then BBC over the course of a few hours. And I was sitting in Bloomberg, and because they don't have it's BBC and ITV who do the poll, so they get to show it on screen. Bloomberg can't show it. But to be honest, our pre-poll, the poll that we do a prediction poll the night before people go to place their vote.
Yeah.
And that one had a very strong reform signal coming through, and the team were up talking to me during the day. The reform signal is very strong. We still have so many interviews left to do. I said, well, come back to me, but also phone that high proportion. There was a small, it was a minority, but it was a significant minority who told us that they weren't going to tell us the answer, how they were going to vote. And that group of people, I wanted to know who they were. I wanted us phoning them back. I wanted to understand their demographics so that we could see if there was something there that we were missing. And so when we published our prediction poll, we put very clearly the proportion of people who told us that they wouldn't tell us, so that it was very clear what the proportion of what we were actually showing was talking to. And you have to be really transparent in how you present your results. But the exit poll is a big moment.
Yes.
You know, our team are locked away in a tiny room. I don't have access to that. There's one telephone. It goes straight to John Curtis and his team. That line is, impenetrable. They're behind a keypad door.
Yeah.
It's super, super top secret. Combined, our field force who are out there, I'm sure you know how they do it. Like, they're literally getting people to put a ballot in a box, just as they've just done, literally mimic the vote in the same way that you've done it with this ballot box outside of the voting room. And so it's a very simulated piece.
Fantastic. We could talk about politics all day, but for another time.